Good morning, and thanks for joining us for our webinar, When a SIEM is no longer sufficient. My name is Jeff Sacuto, and I'll be today's moderator. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. All lines have been muted for the duration of today's call, but please feel free to ask questions using the GoToWebinar questions box. We'll take some time at the end of this call to get to your answers, and if we don't get to everyone, or if we run out of time, we'll be sure to follow up with you later. And with that, I'd like to introduce today's speakers. Dean Liu has been a security engineer at Pandora for 2 years. He has over a decade of experience in security with a background in software development, web app, and network pen testing. Prior to joining Pandora, Dean was a security consultant specializing in SIEM architecture for Fortune 100 and 500 companies. Ben Henderson is a 20-year information security veteran who's worked for several vendors, including FireEye, Cisco, F5 Networks, and RSA. And he's worked extensively in the telecommunications, finance, and defense industries. Ben's most recent operational experience has been working for the Department of Defense, leading information assurance, and incident response and computer forensics activities. I'm now going to hand this over to Ben to get us started. Ben, the floor is yours.
All right, Jeff. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Everyone, it's great to be on with you today. Dean, great to be on with you as well. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep, thank you.
Perfect. So the agenda for the webinar today, what we're going to be discussing is the need for a modern approach to security monitoring. How do we enhance the monitoring that we have in place today? I'm also going to be reviewing the differentiated detection with the ProtectWise grid, what the ProtectWise grid is, how it's used, and also how we integrate with other SIEM tools, and specifically Elk Stack. I'll be doing a live demo of the ProtectWise grid, as well as our integration with Elk Stack. Also, we're lucky enough to have Dean Liu with us from Pandora on the webinar today. He's doing a lot with ProtectWise and Elk Stack integration, and we will be hearing some real-world applications as well. So the need for a modern approach to security monitoring. Of course, as we've seen in the news, the amount of breaches are oncoming and never ending. The tools that we've had in place have been providing a level of security, but it's not the stacks that we have been built for traditional on-prem siloed architecture. Well, and now as we're moving to more of a large-scale cloud-based infrastructure, an infrastructure that has multiple endpoints, multiple data centers, how do you provide advanced analytics from such a broad system, from such a broad environment? So a couple of numbers to reflect the state of the industry. The first one, 17,000. This is the number of alerts generated per week by any typical organization, okay? But of that, only 19% of those are reliable. So how you determine which of these events that you're going to spend your precious IR resources on is very important. Now, 710. Of that, that's the number of reliable alerts that are actually investigated out of that 17,000 number. 1.2 million is the annual cost of time wasted for responding to inaccurate and erroneous intelligence. Right, so I've been operational myself, right? That's always the trick, is where do you spend your resources most wisely? How do you find the evil in the noise to take action most effectively? But how you do that is hindered by the last number here, 0%. And that 0% represents the unemployment rate of cybersecurity professionals, of us, right? 1 million jobs were unfulfilled in 2016, 1.5 million are expected to be unfulfilled in 2019. So, how you can do more with less, do more efficiently, is really key to moving forward into a modern security monitoring approach. Dean, does this ring true in your environment?
Right. No, absolutely. So this is pretty much, I would say, to the T. And with that, the last point is really important too, as well, with be discussing that into more detail later on with some of the projects that we're actively working on in our integration with ProtectWise. But later on, if it looks interesting to you, we do have open security positions here at Pandora as well too. So thank you.
Right. Yeah, everybody does. It's very important to be able to empower the security professionals you have to be able to take action very, very quickly and get to that answer of yes, this is something we need to respond to. So, and at this time, I think we have a poll question.
Yep, that brings us to our first poll question. Let me launch that. Do you feel that your SIM provides the necessary security information for you to make effective decisions about alerts? Please select one of the answers, either yes, no, or your organization doesn't use a SIM. We'll allow a few seconds for people to answer. And we'll close the poll. Oh, people are still voting. And about now. And here are the results for you guys.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. So, my take as well, I've deployed very large scale SIMs. We've had 200,000 endpoints in one environment. And, we had a whole team just to manage the SIM itself. Then we had another team for the backend database. We had specific report writers to create our custom correlated reports that we needed to see. It was a very large effort. We always felt behind the curve. So, an enhancement from a SIM perspective, is very important. And then, also that 13% of, my organization doesn't use a SIM. Well, that's actually a good place to be in, because you can build solutions from the ground up, even using open source solutions today that we're going to demo for you. And by adding ProtectWise analytics to that solution, you get a force multiplication right out of the bat to enable you to make that decision faster. Dean, you have anything to add on that?
Uh-oh. Did we lose Dean? Uh-oh, we're losing Dean's audio.
Okay, yeah, I think Dean's breaking up. He might want to rejoin, but yeah, no, great poll, great poll. All right. So some of the drawbacks of using a SIM for security. A SIM originally, a security incident event management solution, was designed to pull in log solutions from multiple different port sources and enable an organization to glean insight from that, right? However, more and more today, that solution is primarily in place from a compliance perspective. It's becoming even more limited from a security incident response perspective to be a valuable tool, as you need to write your own correlation rules, and the rules that you do have detect only known attacks. So you're always paying catch up in this paradigm that we're in today. It's not scalable. Also, the architecture itself isn't scalable, not just the process of how you do IR by working primarily out of a SIM. The legacy architecture isn't enabled for cloud architectures, for example, the things that we are really moving forward toward today that we need to take an eye on. And then lastly, SIM tools don't have a view from a PCAP perspective. And if so, it's only by very few vendors. ProtectWise differentiates in this respect that we are a PCAP first platform, right? The wire doesn't lie. So what's the solution? Right? If SIMs have been lacking from the context of what's going on in the environment, if they're lacking threat intelligence, if it is a modifiable system that can't be forensically sound, because of course log files can be modified, right? What is the solution that we can easily move forward with our current workflow and make it even more valuable? From our perspective, that solution is to integrate modern security analytics, take a modern security analytics approach, and integrate that with your legacy SIM, to make your existing investment stronger, to make your existing SIM stronger. So how do we do that? How does the ProtectWise grid differentiate from the detections that you have in place today? And what can we do? So at a high level, the ProtectWise grid is deployed, and first and foremost, we deploy very lightweight sensors in any environment you want to monitor. Cloud environments, we like to monitor your egress for north-south traffic, a core site for your core for east-west lateral spread. We can also monitor industrial systems, SCADA systems. That's becoming very, very prevalent, right? Also moving toward Internet of Things, right? Cloud security. If you are deploying a cloud, how do you apply your common IDS rule sets to it? How do you provide advanced analytics and up-to-date threat intelligence to let you know that, yes, this exploit is happening? So that's how ProtectWise works. Very, very lightweight sensors. They're about about 12 meg. You can deploy them on your own bare metal, in a cloud environment, in a virtual environment. And then we send the forensically interesting traffic up to our platform for analysis, right? Compressing up to 80% of your data through optimization and compression. So we send that traffic encrypted to our secure vault. We secure that with AES 256-bit encryption. We employ a security technique called network shattering, patent pending technique to take security controls a step further. And then finally, we run all of that data through our Wisdom engine for time machine analytics. That's our core engine. Until last, the actual correlated event is represented in our visualizer that I'll be showing you in a moment. So what is the core engine, right? What is a time machine for threat detection? Really at the core of ProtectWise is a hierarchy of expert systems. Many different technologies. I like to say you can think of it as a 20-rung ladder, and the bottom rung ladder being signature-based, right? We run IDS, you layer on top of that heuristics. We also layer on all the top tier threat intelligence feeds. We provide our own threat intelligence, enable behavior analysis, and combine all of that with machine learning and data science so that this hierarchy of expert system is feeding each other, right? So that we're getting to a very highly correlated analytics to show what the threat score is, what the danger is, and what the whole attack lifecycle is. Not only do we do that with real-time analytics, but we also have a concept of retrospective analysis. Let's say, for example, there's a new vulnerability out, Heartbleed Vulnerability 2, let's say. We're going to be able to go back in time for as long as we're storing that PCAP data for and let you know, yes, something was exploited with this previously unknown intelligence, and here's what they took. Very important from an investigative perspective. Or we're tracking this event. It's a low threat score now, but we want you to get ahead of this in order to make your infrastructure even stronger. So integrating ProtectWise with Elk Stack. Integrating with a SIEM, how do you integrate with Elk specifically? For those that aren't familiar with Elk Stack, the Elk reference architecture, it's a combination of Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana for visualization. It's an open source SIEM solution. It's very easy to deploy, and it's also very easy to integrate with the ProtectWise grid. All you do simply is install the ProtectWise emitter onto your Logstash. We have a JSON file that Logstash ingests in order to receive that information from our API, from the grid. We have Elasticsearch, and then lastly, we load in a Kibana object file in order to visually represent all the data that's being sent from ProtectWise. So within one solution, you're able to get a visual representation of where in the world your attacks are coming from, all within your SIEM that matches what you have in your ProtectWise infrastructure. And at this time, I think we have a poll question.
Yep. And the next poll is, can your SIEM provide visibility about unknown attacks or weaknesses in your network? Please select one of the answers, yes, no, or your organization does not use a SIEM. And about 15, 20 more seconds. And we're going to close it in a couple seconds. There we go. And let's take a look. There you go, Ben.
Okay, wonderful. I see that pop up. So great. For unknown attacks, and certain weaknesses that you can combine together. So we have 50% say yes, 36% say no, 14%, of course, again, not using a SIEM, right? So, for those that can, of course, always enhancement is good, right? What threat intelligence feeds, some things you might want to consider. What threat feeds are you ingesting today, and how do they correlate? And then, of course, for those that don't, a way to add enhancements to your SIEM without a forklift upgrade is to simply add enhancements from ProtectWise, the alerting, the highly correlated events that's already vetted through our Wisdom engine to get you that very rich, highly accurate threat alerting that you need to take action on. So, very good. All right. So at this time, let me go ahead, where the rubber meets the road, let's jump right into a demo, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and bring up our heads-up display. Okay. So this is the ProtectWise heads-up display for those that may not have seen it in the past. This is what was really designed to be on a big 80, 90-inch sock monitor wall, but just as easily you can connect through a web browser or an iPad Pro or a Surface Pro. You get all of the information, all of the analytics in your environment within one interface. So again, to start off, let's look at one of the sensors you'll deploy. Very, very easy to do. You can deploy these in about 5 minutes. We can hang off of a span port, a tap port, or again, cloud or virtual environment, wherever you'd like. So then you can see, do you want to collect traffic? Stream head, full packet capture, stream heads or net flow. You can be very granular in what you collect all the way down to the IP address level. So if you want to exclude a subnet, you can just null that out. Or if you want to get, again, granular and collect traffic, you're doing an investigation, do full PCAP on that segment. So once these sensors are deployed, we, again, send a TLS with perfect forward secrecy connection to the platform. This is where your data is encrypted at motion. We encrypt it at rest. And then once it's run through our Wisdom engine, you can see where all of your top talkers are in the world. This is our connection graph. On the right-hand side, you can see the 7-stage cyber kill chain spiral, where we align all of our observations and event alerting too. So with ProtectWise, we actually take all of the individual quote-unquote alerts, which we call observations, and we roll those up into very, very few events so that we're already taking action, and you can then decide what you want to do next from all of this advanced analytic data that you have right at your fingertips. So let's drill down into one of those and take a look at the attack progression. How do we work an incident response lifecycle or incident response process within ProtectWise? Now, even within the heads-up display, you have a lot of relevant information. You see where in the world this attack is coming from, one source address to 6 destinations. You can see the kill chain stages. Now, you can download the PCAP for this, or I'm going to go ahead and view this event in what we call our kill box. Okay, this is the incident responders workbench. This is where you can walk through the attack lifecycle step by step. So here you see that this was happening over time. This was a redirect from a compromised WordPress site. Of course, you could download the PCAP, or you could download just that observation. We also have built in a PCAP viewer for you. So to help enhance your investigations, if you want to quickly find who the referrer is, you have a quick search, and you can continue to walk the whole attack lifecycle all the way until what had happened, Locky was installed. We also provide you context of every IP address. We give you the threat intelligence for IP addresses transversing your environment. All the threat intel, activity over time, all the network information, and DNS information that you may want to add to, a filter list or proxy, for example. Myself, when I was operational, to get to a view like this, and this was only 5 years ago, right? It wasn't that long ago, but to get to a view like this, to research the whole attack lifecycle, what the attack was, what the IP addresses in play are, we can also provide you a view of what the firewall is saying for this attack. Specifically, we can also show you internally, as you do your investigation, what is this internal host, right? Everything that you do normally, we have within one interface for you. Myself, my team, it would take us probably 4 hours, maybe a larger attack like this, 8 hours to generate a report with all of this information. With ProtectWise getting to this view, it was 2 clicks. So from a force multiplication perspective, a value perspective, it really is applying that level of analytics to your data set is a game changer operationally. To further reflect that, now we can continue our investigation from just incident response to threat hunting. So I'm going to select Explorer and move over to our threat hunting view. So as you see here, this was the original external malicious IP. We see it's not only talking to the one IP address internally, it's talking to several more. Now, these specific alerts in this event, right, whatever you want to kind of inspect and look on, you can come through and drill down to see the actual observations of why we say this is malicious. You can come through and do a search as you need to, pose any question you need to the platform. What's the file size? How big? What's this file name? And who touched it? Or who's gone to this HTTP? Who's gone to this website? You can also drill down into application layer information. If you're concerned with who's using BitTorrent, for example, in your environment, or is somebody using Shadow IT, an unauthorized app? Anything from a security perspective, you now have a threat hunting platform to use. And then from the actual events that we're seeing, back to the attack progression on a host, we will then send those over to Elk quite easily, and you'll get the same information. Now what I'm doing, I'm pivoting from ProtectWise over to our Elk deployment. And as you see here, you see all of the same information, what we're detecting. So if this is your current workflow, if this is what your security teams work in, primarily, we will enhance Elk. We will give Elk the advanced alerting that you can then take and make a decision on what you want to do from an IR perspective. So to show that, let me look for a good, okay, so again, we were looking at an attack progression on a host, right? So let's continue to do that. Here's the attack progression on a host. I'm going to go ahead and pin this IP address, okay? Okay, now we find this event in Elk, in Logstash. You get all of the same information, the source IP, destination IP, MAC, source, everything that you need to complete your investigation. Now, if you want to work and pivot back to your ProtectWise instance, we provide the link already in Elk. We just simply select that link, go back to the Explorer view, and you're directly back in the investigation. You can download the PCAPs and continue the investigation from there. And now, let me see here. So at this time, really, don't take our word for it. The great thing about having Dean on is, and I'm really excited to hear how Dean has operationalized this, integrating ProtectWise with Elk. So with that, Dean, take it away. Show us what you got.
Hey, good morning, guys. Everyone hear me well?
I can.
Oh, great, cool. So yeah, my name is Dean. I'm part of the security operations team here at Pandora. Really excited to talk to you guys about how we're utilizing ProtectWise and how we've integrated this solution into our environment here. So naturally, with sharing the integration, we'll cover a chunk of our security workflow process, and in addition to some of the projects that we are currently actively working on here. Next slide, please. So little background about ourselves. We're about 2,500 employees here. We have 5 global data centers, 8 global office locations. And within Pandora, pertaining to the dedicated security teams, we have a GRC, the government risk and compliance. They deal with a lot of the administrative, so you can think of the policies, the procedures, the vendor risk assessments, incident response coordination. Our second team is the application security team. They focus on the customer-facing applications, secure coding practices, improving our software development cycle, essentially our OWASP experts, if you may. And finally, the third team, this is the team that I'm part of, which is the security operations team. We handle the technical infrastructure pertaining to security, such as VPN, firewalls, endpoint security, vulnerability scanning and management, spam filtering, just general anomaly detection and analytics within our logs. Okay, next slide, please. So it's difficult to talk about our security operations team here without talking about Elk. So we don't use a traditional SIEM in a sense. So you think of these solutions as ArcSight, Alien Vault, OSIM, Splunk, where they've marketed towards security particularly. So the main reasons why we chose Elk is, it has exceptional performance in parsing events. Its indexing and retrieval of log events is really, really fast. And Kibana, which is gives you really an easy means to visualize and aggregate the data that you have. So SecOps, security operations, isn't the only consumers of Elk at Pandora. Many other teams also utilize our clusters as well for their own monitoring and their data analytics purposes. So we treat it as a source of truth. It's really the main basis for our team for correlation and anomaly detection. And we've been customers of ProtectWise for about 2 years at this point. We are relying on them to apply. They have some great curated threat intelligence that they're using. Also, they have a lot of custom in-house data science that they're applying to our outbound network traffic, which they're using to find potential malicious network behavior. So much of what some of the features that you've seen of what Ben discussed earlier. So with that, let's dive in a bit. Next slide, please. So this is a very high-level view of a portion of our Pandora architecture here, and where we are currently having ProtectWise taps, essentially where traffic is being analyzed by ProtectWise. So our first tap on the far right is our headquarters out in Oakland. So this is where our employees reside, and so any sort of traffic, outbound traffic that is coming from our headquarters out into the internet, it travels through our corp data center first, and then before it makes it out to the internet. So we have a tap right there that's forwarding traffic to ProtectWise to be analyzed for malicious behavior. Our second tap is our production data center, and this houses our radio and application servers. So when you hit Pandora.com or listen on your phone or in your car, you're essentially going to hit this data center. So it's worth distinguishing that the traffic that is originating from the customer or our listeners per se isn't analyzed, but the traffic that is originating from the production servers is. So for example, let's say you open Pandora and you request to listen to Katy Perry, for example, and our radio server starts streaming her music to you. So that traffic is not analyzed. However, if you were to open an SSH session to one of our radio servers and then start pinging Google or curling for a file or generating this other traffic out to the internet, it takes a different path from our original listener stream. So that specific traffic is being analyzed by ProtectWise for malicious traffic. Next slide, please. So here's a very high-level, general, abstract view of our logging architecture that we utilize here. There's a bit going on here, and hopefully some of that becomes a bit more clear as I walk through this. So starting from the way far left, we have a slew of logs from like Windows, Linux, two-factor auth, VPN, our email spam filters, DHCP endpoints, et cetera, just really an onslaught of logs. So ProtectWise is part of this, this huge cloud of logs, and it follows the same data path. So everything gets sent to our syslog server first. This kind of behaves as our long-term storage for our raw logs. And then from there, we forward from our syslog to logstash, roughly, averaging about 25,000 events per second right now, sometimes peaking a lot more throughout the day, and a bit more quieter during off-peak hours, like during the night. So we're forwarding that all to logstash to parse and normalize on a set of fields such as the source, destination IP, and the username, so that these fields, once dissimilar, now match. Now that they're normalized, we then index these into Elasticsearch. So after normalize, it's really easy for then SecOps to generate, like pretty graphs within Kibana, and we have a lot of like custom internal command line interface tools that we've developed to essentially pull or analyze this data. So on the bottom middle, you can see like the correlation and alerting portion. So we use an open source tool called ElastAlert. It's developed by Yelp, and this is our main framework for defining our correlation and alerting rules to detect on anomalies, spikes, and flatlines, or any sort of patterns of interest that SecOps wants to be alerted on. Sitting right beside it, you'll see there's this application framework we call Sprinkles. That's a in-house tool that's developed by Pandora, which I'll discuss a little bit more towards the end of the slides. But pertaining to ElastAlert, so if we take a scenario, ProtectWise is forwarding these observation and events. Events are correlated observations, and they're essentially So events are essentially correlated observations that ProtectWise is sending to Elasticsearch. And what they're also tacking on there is a threat score. So a threat score is a numerical value from 0 to 100 that ProtectWise has added on. So anything that's greater than 60, we deem that, our security operations deem that as a potential high severity level that we should analyze. So utilizing ElastAlert, we have a correlation rule that looks for this specific value that ProtectWise is forwarding us. So anything that's greater than 60, we want to be alerted on that because we need to do some potential follow-up investigation work on that. So ElastAlert has provides us kind of like an easy means. It's written in Python, so it also gives us an easy means to define our custom modules. So we can then decorate the original alert that ProtectWise has sent us. So what is decoration alerts? So decoration alerts are additional sort of information that we want to add to the alert. So if you look at a 3A, after the initial alert that ProtectWise has sent us, we do some additional external threat intel via API calls to virus total, showed in, passive total. So we want to know what have other virus vendors seen about this destination IP? What is the history of this DNS resolution? In addition to this, we want to make an API request to ProtectWise to download the relevant PCAP pertaining to the event when it gets automatically, which then gets automatically converted to ASCII format. So we don't want to, go into ProtectWise, download the PCAP, and then open Wireshark. So we've automated that process to essentially grab the ASCII for us.
And that is the coolest thing, Dean, just to interject. We love I love this architecture and the fact that you use the threat score to automate and take corrective action to pull down the ASCII into Elk Stack. That is a great workflow, man. Very innovative and great architecture.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so one of our big philosophies here is, we try to automate everything that we can. So if it means, it takes a bit to open up Wireshark, and then, you got to follow TCP stream, you got to do this and that. So if we could just automate that into, kind of like we start with this snowball, and essentially we're like packing on these layers of snow, additional information before it actually gets to us to view, then, that's fantastic to eliminate these extra steps. So
yeah, that's great.
So the second portion, if you look at 3B, we start beginning to add this internal contextual information. So now that we've reached out to the external, we want to reach back into our Elasticsearch instance. We've collected all these fantastic and great logs. So ProtectWise is giving us the source and destination IP, and then we know from logs in Elasticsearch that we've normalized that this IP maps to this username because we got the VPN and DHCP logs. Now that we have the username, we can do a query and look up the role of the user. Is it an engineer? Is it HR? Are they in finance? That kind of helps us figure out what sort of potential sensitive information that this user may have access to. Additionally, because we have access to AD, we can view when their last password was changed. And then from the source IP, we can hit our endpoint security device logs and look up their operating system, their user patch level. And then we also have virus logs that we're currently collecting, and we can look up any sort of recent infection events within that time frame, thinking that, perhaps if we see a virus event that it may be related to this ProtectWise alert, and maybe this our virus scanners didn't clean it up all the way or properly. So that's essentially kind of like a summarized version of the workflow in terms of how our ProtectWise data is currently integrated in right now. And we do have some future work to be done, which I'll be describing later on. But yep, next slide, please. So, you know what they say, users are the weakest link in security. We're not too happy to see that some of our users are willingly inputting their username and passwords into these phishing sites. But we are happy that ProtectWise have caught these events. So at the start, when we first integrated into ProtectWise, we did see quite a bit of these events, but luckily these events are becoming far less frequent now due to large efforts of our security awareness training that our GRC team is leading. And we also have some additional technical controls in addition to ProtectWise to help guard against these phishing attempts as well. So it's pretty rare at this point to receive these types of alerts. Some is still making it through, but ProtectWise is kind of like serving as a good barometer that, hey, we're starting to see less of these alerts come through. So, our awareness training is getting better, and some of our other technical controls is catching it before ProtectWise is seeing it as well too. So about a year and a half ago, those unfamiliar with Xcode Ghost, what it is, it's a modified and bugged version of Apple's Xcode development environment. So when people utilize this bugged version, it inserted this unwanted malware code into the application. So when ProtectWise updated their definitions, it's really nice that they have this what they call retrospective analysis. Every time that their definitions are updated, what they would do is re-query or like reanalyze the data that they have already collected. So they did help us detect that one of our developers was utilizing a bug version of Xcode, and because of that, we were able to say, hey, you should probably, what you should be doing is downloading the proper Xcode from Apple themselves, and instead of this, like version like outside somewhere on a random portion of the net. So fortunately, it didn't make its way into the Pandora application, but yeah, it was really nice to catch. So additional things that we've seen with ProtectWise, they were learning things on people have Android adware, they have like some rooted phones or like some third-party phones that they've bought cheaply, and then they've come with like some adware and stuff. And then some other interesting things is, we noticed like some users, like every lunch, they like to play this iOS game, and then this iOS game is making these insecure web API calls that contain weird SQL statements. And those web API calls, it's like, oh, that's actually kind of interesting or kind of weird. So it's kind of things that are happening with our environment that are kind of just in general like good to know about. So TechOps and engineering org at Pandora, we have a philosophy of just improving, automating wherever we can, and we try to eliminate a lot of context switching. So like the example that I gave earlier with ProtectWise, all of our vendors that we deal with, we pretty much require them to have an API exposed. So the ability to integrate a solution in an environment via API calls is really important to us. So just from the example earlier that I described, when an event or high severity alert that ProtectWise has alerted us of, we make an automated call to them via the API to download the PCAP file, convert it into ASCII format for consumption by us. So another nice thing to see is low false positives. So again, with alert fatigue, we are happy that there's like a threat score that they've appended to each event. So they've essentially they've gone through each observation and correlated these events, and within what they've deemed is considered high severity, and that kind of alleviates a lot of the work out of our team to determine is this like a critical event or not. So there's a low false positive rate. We've pretty much seen that anything that is deemed with a high severity or critical rate does actually need to be investigated. So that's great to see as well, to kind of like to minimize that alert fatigue. Okay. Next slide, please. So our future plans with ProtectWise, we currently only have 2 sensors deployed. We have a bunch of more offices globally. So our plan is to deploy more sensors, get additional visibility, add layers to our environment, and further integration with our suite of threat intelligence stuff. So the scenario that I described earlier with ProtectWise, event that comes through into our ELK workflow. So the second scenario is, we have a correlation engine that shows an endpoint. Just for example, an endpoint is doing a scan in our network. They're probing like port 445 and sweeping our network. So we're currently in active development to when certain events pop up or alerts, we will reach back out to ProtectWise and look for any like source or destination IPs that kind of like intercept or intersect with this original event, and like grab additional information that ProtectWise might have seen with like these generated internal events or alerts that we've seen. So the third portion, this is more of a long-term goal that we have. It's really an R&D development phase. This is the thing that I mentioned earlier. It's called Sprinkles. So this is an endpoint behavior analytics framework that we've developed in-house by the security operations team. And what we're collecting is sort of like these features on each endpoint. So the number of hosts that they connected to, the number of protocols that they're utilizing, the number of ACLs that they're hitting on our VPN firewalls, the bandwidth that they're currently sending out, receiving, any sort of virus events. So we have all these sort of like features that we're snapshotting at a point in time, and then we're essentially developing this almost like a mathematical model that if a threshold or if anything exceeds a certain number that we deemed as potentially anomalous, then we want to be alerted on that. So we like to integrate ProtectWise as another feature, another dimension within Sprinkles. So we would essentially add a weight to that feature, and yeah, essentially like integrate it into Sprinkles. So just for example scenario, let's say an endpoint is payroll, and they're accessing for the past week payroll related servers, and all of a sudden they're accessing our analytic nodes, which are only our engineers or analytics users should be utilizing. So we want to be alerted to that. So Sprinkles will actually show you that uptick, that delta percentage when that occurs. So yep, I think that's it. Yep, so that's Sprinkles in general, and that's part of our plans to integrate ProtectWise within that regard as well too. So that's kind of a summary of a little bit of our projects here at Pandora. And again, if some of these projects do sound interesting, we do have open positions in security. And with that, I wanted to turn it back to you, Ben.
All right, Dean. Thank you so much for sharing that with us and with our attendees. It's great to see, an advanced security program, implementing it and making smart choices on how you're going to really modernize your SIEM and your security infrastructure. Let me ask you if you could share with the group, how long did it take you to set up Elk Stack and ProtectWise Sensor?
It was fast. So originally, so the ProtectWise emitter, your guys' official integration is actually a recent feature. So before that, we were integrating via your guys' API and essentially duplicating or mimicking that same exact feature. Right. So just originally from the API calls and stuff, it was really fast, within, 4 days, a week or so. And then the second portion, your guys' official release integration, it took, even like a day to integrate. So it was really fast.
That's great. And again, these sensors, very easy to deploy anywhere, very lightweight. So we're very, very happy to hear your vision and your view of integrating ProtectWise with Elk Stack. So again, thank you. And I guess at this time we have a poll question, Jeff?
Yep, this is our third and final poll question. For how long would you like to retain forensic information? Please select one of the following answers. Less than 1 week, a week to a month to less than 3 months, 3 months to less than 6 months, or 6 or more months. We'll give everybody about 20 more seconds. Just a couple more seconds. People are still voting. And let's see the results. There you go, Ben.
That's great to see, because even a minimum I feel and we feel is 30 days, right, from a forensics perspective. But the ideal is 3 months, 6 months to more. or more, right? You have very long dwell times, right, from a threat actor perspective, especially if you're concerned with advanced, with APTs today. The dwell times that we've seen statistically and consistently is over 200 days. Right. So having the PCAPs at your disposal to provide that analytics for as long as possible is a great approach. That's great to see, Jeff.
And back over to you.
Okay, thank you. So just to recap, right, the benefits of a joint solution, deploying Elk Stack as well as ProtectWise and integrating those solutions. If you're deploying Elk Stack today, you're working in a familiar UI, right? You can quickly pivot back and forth between ProtectWise and Elk. By integrating our advanced analytics, you're now shortening the time to resolution for an incident that you may be working. Because ProtectWise is also feeding very highly correlated events, we're decreasing alert fatigue. So now you're focusing on the true evil and the noise, not every individual observation or alert that you would be really running around in circles until you found what was potentially malicious in your environment. Number 4, it enables you to attain security talent. And then lastly, enable the efficient workflows that you need today in order to take action against the most egregious malicious activity attacking your environment every day. So with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions at this time.
Sure. Let me click over into the questions we've received. And the first one, I guess, is for both of you. Do you think SIEM reached end of life and needs to be replaced by an analytics platform, or do you feel that you're going to need both?
So I think that there's, and Dean, jump in here, but I think there's definitely going to be a merging, right? Logs are important, right? They're not the end all and be all, but logs enable you to provide context of what's happening with each device, right? But really from our perspective, right, the wire doesn't lie. So we do want to integrate and have that view of what logs are saying. But logs today only without advanced analytics or retrospection is really doing your security organization a disservice, we feel. So, we feel it's going to be more of a merging of the two technologies. Dean, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I completely agree. So I don't see SIEM's solutions, completely going end of life. I agree that, there's gonna be like a coexisting or eventually emerging. So we still, kind of as security engineers, I feel like we kind of have to really love logs. A lot of our time is spent in it and kind of like finding that needle in the haystack. But it's just nice that, we have ProtectWise to kind of help us do a lot of the analysts getting caught up today. A lot of the analytics for us in terms of our external kind of threat intelligence, which is really nice to have. So it allows our team to kind of focus on the abnormal behavior that's kind of going on in our internal network.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. Jeff, any other questions?
Yeah, we've got a few. This one specifically for Dean. Does Pandora plan to make sprinkles available to the rest of the security community via open source?
That's funny. Yeah, so I mean, I would say it's pretty far from that. We do have, it would be nice, that'd be awesome if we can make it publicly available eventually once it becomes more mature. So there's another solution called acquisition that Elasticsearch just recently made with Pre-Alert. So there is some overlap between what Pre-Alert is offering and what Sprinkles also intends to do, that we're kind of still sussing out as well too. Mm-hmm. I do want to say we have like a bunch of internal tools as well too, that we've custom developed that's dedicated to our security operations team, that we're kind of working towards making, that I think a lot of you guys would find interesting or useful to your team, that we're looking to open source pretty soon.
Awesome. This one is for Ben. One of our participants saw packet header information in URIs, but how many protocols do you decode the entire payload for?
So we actually have thousands of protocols we're be able to detect and search on and decode today, and we can go through that list as well. But it's part of what you saw in threat hunt in the Explorer section when we were doing threat hunting. So yeah, I mean, we can just go through. I don't have them all off the top of my head, but thousands of them.
Great. Next question. Participant SIM generates a lot of alarms, and there's no easy way to know where I should start. How does this approach help make a difference?
So with this approach, you're now getting a highly correlated threat score from ProtectWise that we will feed your SIM. So like Dean was saying, you could start with us as a touch point to say, what's ProtectWise's point of view on that? What threat score are we giving? We give you all of the information, the artifacts that go along with that investigation. So by bringing in all of the advanced threat intelligence, all of the different security technologies that we're running in our stack to apply that to your data set, now you're getting a much richer set of event data, of alerts. So you're not running around hunting yourself anymore based on a alert you get. You're now looking at the exact attack lifecycle and starting to find potentially unknown threats with our Explorer view. So in short, what it will do is make you more efficient from a security operations perspective. It will help you find malicious activity much, much faster than you would have today. And it would actually reduce your workload on your SIM if you are writing your own correlations, right? And running around and trying to chase that and write your own correlations daily. ProtectWise already correlates. So it saves you a lot of that workload and effort.
Yeah, if I can add on to that too as well. So yeah, I agree. Like the SIEM solutions, they are very verbose. They're kind of like alert happy. It's like a really fire hose of events. The additional contextual information that you can glean from your internal environment is really, I say, critical in helping tune out those alerts. So just for example, like we get a lot of brute force alerts in our internal environment. And when that alert generates, we do like a follow-up investigation. It's all automated. We do a follow-up check against Active Directory and check, hey, did this user just change their password within the last 7 days? And say, oh, they did. And that's the reason why we're receiving these brute force events. So the ability to kind of like reach out to kind of like correlate with these other events to add these contextual information, whether you want to generate that alert or not, is, I say, really critical in kind of fine tuning your solution.
Great. Excuse me. And we have a couple more questions coming in. Ben, what kind of forensic information can ProtectWise provide?
So we collect traffic in several different ways. We collect traffic full packet capture, stream heads, right? The first 4,000 bytes or so, which has source, destination, certificate information, and then lastly, metadata, right? We collect NetFlow data. So we enable you to help tune what forensic data you do want to keep. Do you want full packet capture on a certain subnet or a certain protocol? Absolutely. We do give you a recommended profile that we say, this is the most forensically interesting data, the most forensically interesting protocols, types of traffic that we want to collect and run through our wisdom engine. But again, we enable a lot of that flexibility for you to determine what you want to collect and how you want to collect it. We also, one last thing to add, we enable you to add your own threat intelligence to the platform as well. So if you have a list of snort signatures that you want to apply, if you want to modify a signature to alert on something very specific that pertains to your environment, you have the flexibility to do that as well.
Great. And now a question for Dean. Can you ballpark or give a description of the time savings the integration provides?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure.
The time setting, or?
Yeah, can you give a description of the time savings that the integration might provide?
Got it. I would say, so before the integration, we were attempting to, well, we still have initial implementation, but we were tasked with, without the integration, we essentially had a task with manually looking for or crossing our outbound traffic and Elasticsearch logs for any sort of malicious activity. So we've essentially, we started consuming all these threat intelligence feeds. We want to list like botnets, malicious IP addresses, and then we consume that into our ELK instance, and then we start beginning to cross use that as a lookup table as we're ingesting these log events into Elk. So before we were doing that, we still are a bit to generate or find these potential malicious activities. But after we essentially added ProtectWise, so they're now kind of essentially doing more of the heavy data analytics with our outbound traffic to look for that malicious activity. So otherwise, then we'd have to come up with a solution with essentially intersecting our threat intelligence with our data to alert us on potential malicious activity. So I would say a good chunk is probably saved. It's really, honestly, ProtectWise is pretty easy to use too. We set the sensor up, and then it's kind of like a leave it as is, and any sort of alert that gets generated for us to investigate, we kind of chase that down. There's not a lot of, I mean, you can dig through within their interface as well too, but we're more in tune or really into the sort of data that they're gathering and correlating on.
Great. Let me double check. I think that was our last question. Yep, that was the last one. So thanks everybody for joining. And as far as next steps, we're going to be sending you a copy of our solution brief, Security Monitoring with ProtectWise. And if you have any additional questions, you can always email us at info@protectwise.com. Next slide, please. And again, thanks for joining us this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are. And we hope that you join us again on future webinar events. Have a good day.